volume of the unaware, a quiet philosophy on loud ignorance. There's a strange kind of heartbreak that happens in silence, when you watch someone speak with absolute certainty about something they do not understand, not just speak, but dominate the room, push out the air, drown the nuance. And somehow, in all that noise, be applauded for it. You sit there, quietly, wondering, how? How can someone so unaware, so disconnected from depth, speak with such unshakable confidence? How can ignorance wear the voice of authority, while wisdom so often whispers? It's not arrogance that stings the most. It's the blindness to it. The ancient philosopher Socrates once said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." And in that, he revealed a painful truth, that the deeper we understand something, the more we realize how vast the unknown really is. But those who've never made the descent, those who live only on the surface, they don't see the ocean beneath. They mistake the shallows for the whole world. They speak not to learn, but to declare. Not to explore, but to conquer. Not to understand, but to be seen. And maybe that's what this is. Not intelligence, not depth, but performance. There's a kind of confidence that doesn't come from knowledge, but from never having been humbled by it. A kind of loudness that grows in the absence of introspection. A certainty born not from clarity, but from the lack of it. And it's loud because it has to be, because silence would make the hollowness echo. Because slowing down might reveal the cracks. It's strange, isn't it? How the less someone knows, the more certain they seem. And the more someone has studied, suffered, questioned, the softer their voice becomes. Not because they're unsure, but because they've come to respect complexity. Philosopher Bertrand Russell once said, "The trouble with the world is that the stupid are cocksure and the intelligent are full of doubt. And if you've ever sat across from someone speaking over an expert, someone interrupting a truth with a smug half-thought, then you felt that quote in your bones." It's not that they're evil. Often they're not even aware. They believe themselves to be helpful. They believe they're just saying what others are thinking. They believe confidence is proof of correctness, but belief is not truth. Volume is not wisdom, and being unafraid of being wrong is not the same as being right. Why does this happen? Why do the ignorant speak the loudest? Maybe it's because they haven't yet met themselves in the mirror, not deeply, not vulnerably, not honestly. Because to really meet yourself, to look at your limits, your fragility, your unfinished thoughts, that takes courage. That takes quiet. That takes time. But time is not fashionable. Quiet is not viral. And courage these days is too often mistaken for aggression. So instead of the slow bloom of understanding, we get the quick punch of opinion. Instead of conversation, we get commentary. Instead of humility, we get heat. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "Convictions are more dangerous enemies of truth than lies." And it's terrifying how true that feels, because once someone convinces themselves that they already know, they stop listening, they stop searching, they stop growing, they become a closed room, airless, echoing with their own voice, believing the volume of their sound is proof of truth. Meanwhile, those who do know, the scientists, the thinkers, the seekers, the ones who've spent years refining their craft, they hesitate. They pause. They weigh their words, because they know how easily truth can be bent. They know that certainty can be violent. They know that real understanding carries responsibility. And so they speak softly, sometimes too softly to be heard over the noise. There's a deep loneliness in watching wisdom go unheard, in seeing someone dismissed because they weren't loud enough, fast enough, confident enough. There's a sorrow in realizing we've built a world that listens to volume before value, to charisma before character. Have you ever been in a room where you knew the truth, but said nothing because you didn't want the fight, because you were tired, because you've learned that being right doesn't always feel good? That is what philosophy feels like. That quiet ache, that solitude, that silent protest of the soul. But take heart, this is not new. Even Plato wrote of the cave, where the man who saw the light and returned to tell the others was mocked, because truth, in the eyes of the unready, looks like madness. This is the burden of awareness, to see what others don't, and still walk gently, to know the depth of the ocean, and still not demand applause for knowing how to swim. So what do? We remember that wisdom doesn't always win the argument, but it outlasts it. We remember that real knowledge is humble, that the greatest minds in history were often the quietest in the room. And we remember, most of all, that we're not immune, because all of us, at some point, have been the loud one, the certain one, the unknowing one who didn't realize it. And so, we hold space for compassion too. We speak gently. We ask questions. We breathe before we answer. And when the noise gets too loud, we return to the silence. Because wisdom lives there, not in the spotlight, not in the performance, but in the stillness of a mind that no longer needs to prove itself. As Lao Tzu said, "He who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know." Maybe that's a bit harsh, but maybe that's the paradox. Maybe truth is not something we shout, but something we carry, quietly, carefully, courageously, even when the loudest in the room haven't yet learned how to listen.